So, the landscape, they were always saying change, embrace change. Where do you see social media going? Will Facebook last? Will there be a replacement? We had MySpace moving into Facebook. Where do you see it going?
I think it's just getting started. I mean, look at, we were at the ARF, look at what is happening with Groupon and how quickly they're growing, and now there's Foursquare, and every day there's a new technology popping up. What's happened is we've created a new crop of what I call the digital natives. I mean, my kids know how to use my smartphone. They're 3 years old. So I think we're just seeing the very first wave, and human interactions are going to move even more and more into the online world. The smartphones are just going to get PhDs, and people are going to be using them for everything. And so, will Facebook last? Maybe, or it'll get superseded by something bigger and better. But I think that the way humans communicate and doing it via their phone through the waves of the internet is really here to stay.
In terms of measurement, do you think there'll be standard metrics? Television has a fairly standard way of being measured and bought. How do you think that relates to digital?
So I think that's one of the things that this market's craving right now is a set of best practices for measurement. And that's one of the things that we're working on right now. We look at three different things. We look at what everyone looks at, which is buzz, the sheer volume that people speak. We also look at something that's called net sentiment, which is the overall feeling that consumers are expressing in amalgam about a brand. And we've actually been correlating that to some of the key statistics that brands use to measure customer satisfaction, like the metrics that are put out by the University of Michigan, the consumer stats. And actually we found a tremendous correlation between our net sentiment and theirs, the Michigan's stat. And then we also look at passion intensity. And we assign scores to all of those. And we also have visualizations that incorporate those three metrics so that you can see how your brand rates versus the competition. But I do think that the industry is craving for that. And we're just starting to do this. We're leading the path. We're driving adoption from some of the largest brands. And I think it's going to be really about 5 years before you see all the brands galvanizing around this methodology.
Lisa, can you give me an example of what you found in your data that sort of led to a certain conclusion?
Okay, yeah. So we were talking a little bit about truism, and I want to share two examples with you. One, I was very closely monitoring and measuring what consumers were saying about the actors right before, during, and after the Oscars. What I found really interesting was the sheer volume and intensity of consumer passion for Colin Firth that we saw, as I said, before, during, and after. So it was really interesting to see the consumer passion be in line with what actually played out. But I also have another really interesting example. When we got started at NetBase, before we had any clients where we could have a solid case study, we went and we did an in-depth, what we call a netnography, which is applying the ethnographic process to the online world on the product Listerine. And we found all kinds of interesting things, but I'll zero in on one thing in particular. We found that, I talked to you about how themes bubble up. There were a lot of positive themes about harsh. People were saying, I know Listerine works because it hurts, because it's harsh. The harshness tells me it's killing germs. And we also had people saying, I hate the harshness, it doesn't taste good, it bothers me. So as we went through this whole netnography, and again, this was an independent study that we just did for our own edification, one of our actionable insights from this harshness was that Listerine should create a product called Listerine with soothing power. Something that's not as harsh, but still has the Listerine brand because it's branded for being the trusted source for keeping your gums clean. Well, that was in February of 2010. Now, on their own, through their own traditional research methods, Listerine, about 8 months later, put out a product called Listerine Zero, which is a not harsh version of Listerine. So it's very interesting for me to see that our social media research came to the exact same conclusion that traditional media research did in a fraction of the time.
I heard that you won the gold for the Great Mind Award at the ARF 2011. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I can, except I'm still red. It's an award that they give. They do a series of awards for the Great Mind Awards event. And the category that I was nominated for was the membership contribution. And again, I'm still really quite floored and really humbled and just so delighted to have been awarded this recognition. And I think what it's for is that my marketing philosophy has always been to educate the customer first. And so my original ambition was actually to be a teacher. And so we've been doing a lot of education at NetBase. We have free webinars on all topics across the entire social media spectrum to help the market just learn. I mean, it is amazing how much people still need to learn about how to use social media for everything, to drive their marketing programs, to build engagement, to understand influence, and of course for market research. So over the last bunch of months, I've been partnering with all these different industry analysts and writers and customers, and we've been doing these purely educational programs. I've also written papers with college professors, co-produced papers on ethnography, and worked with the ARF very, very closely to just help drive education in this changing new market. And so I was really, just as I said, honored and humbled to be given the award in that category.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.